So I'm in Washpool, near Horsley, and Tom is across the valley in Rockness. So hopefully everyone's internet will hold up and we can keep the session going for an hour tonight. Okay, so a little bit more about NCAN. We are a local community group for people who want to take action on climate change, and we work across the community to support actions to reduce the town's carbon footprint and to promote health and well-being, sustainability and a positive future for the town. And so that's kind of why we wanted to host these talks, to get to know more local people who are, and organisations who are creating positive change in the community, and open up the conversation between ourselves and others, in the hope of inspiring people, informing them, and just sharing information about what is going on in Nailsworth and the surrounding area. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we move over to lovely Tom. I think everyone will be on mute now, but if you can stay on mute for the meeting, apart from myself and Tom, and then hopefully there won't be any confusion about who's talking. And hopefully Zoom will throw between us as we chat. We will have time for questions at the end, and if anyone has a question, please do type it into the chat screen. At the bottom of the screen there's a little speech bubble which says chat, and that allows you to type in any questions that you might have, and we can get onto those at the end of our conversation, and hopefully answer as many as we can. Okay, so I think that's it about NCAN, and so just moving over to Tom Herbert, who we have here. We couldn't think of a better way to start off our set of chats, our conversations, than with Tom from the Long Table. For those of you who don't know, the Long Table is a brilliant local social enterprise that aims to give everyone in the community access to great food by providing delicious meals and supporting local food hubs and supply chains. And just in brief, Tom will be talking to us about why and how an organisation was founded and what it brings to the community, including the wonderfully named Freezers of Love, which is just a wonderful thing. We also hope to hear about how they've adapted to the pandemic, their hopes for the future, and how we can possibly get involved. Okay, so Tom, hi.
Hi. Hi, Jenny. Hello, everyone else. Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure. It's lovely to have you. Thank you for agreeing to do this. It's brilliant. So I'm just thinking back to, I think the first Long Table, was it sort of the summer of 2018? Is that right?
It was end of February 2018.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, because it was very cold. I do remember that.
Very cold. There was just one. Lots of friends came, and I could see straight away that, this is really good, but I'm not sure how I can make a living for myself out of this. So I didn't do anything else for about another 6 months other than think about it.
Yeah.
And then bit by bit we got going. Yeah.
Okay. And since then, things have just changed hugely, haven't they? So you started off in the food part, as part of the food bank in there. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, and sharing the same space. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then moved across the road. Well, it's not really a road, is it?
Yeah. In the Brimscombe port. We needed more space, and Unit 1 became available, which is so we shared that with Furniture Bank, our sister social enterprise. And then as the pandemic started, they moved to Unit 4, and so now we have a whole warehouse for what we do. Yeah,
that's a big space, isn't it? So
yeah, so the space has grown, but lots else has changed too. Yeah.
So tell us, so you started off with just doing the Long Table as a meal to attend, and you can pay as you feel, and just tell us a bit about the idea and the sort of ethos behind that.
Right, well, so some of you, I know some of you from when Anna and I started Hobbs House Bakery in Nailsworth in 2001. And as I've worked there in my family business, I've seen lots of things and ended up trying to work out how best to use my energy and what I love and what I'm enthusiastic for. And in the end of 2016, I left Hobbs and my family and tried some different things. I went and baked in the refugee camp in Calais with Refugee Community Kitchen, and I learned about milling. I wrote a book and tried lots of things. And at the end of that year, I had 3 days before Christmas spare, and I was job seeking. And I just thought I could offer my time to Food Bank. And I rang Will, who ran Food Bank, who I've known since it's open, but I don't know particularly well. And he told me, well, he doesn't run Food Bank anymore. He set up the Grace Network and social enterprises, and they could do with a hand. So I went and volunteered for 3 days, got to know them. I took a job at Kids Stuff, another sister company down there. And it was unpacking. We get deliveries of clothes in black bags, and I was kind of sorting through the donations. And over a course of a couple of months, I got to know the team and see how they work. And I shared my vision, my dream, if you will, for the long table. And they said, well, with the furniture bank, we've got what we need here. Why don't you just push the tables together and do a meal? Not, looking at it from the point of view of someone who's like, well, what could be difficult? And it was really refreshing. So I bought in a barbecue, got some washing up bowls. Somehow we made a meal, got some nice wine. About 80 people came, I think, for that first one.
Yeah.
And so the idea was started. So we'd call that kind of...
but I can't hear anything.
We call that kind of...
It tells me on the speaker.
Minimum viable product. So just like, if you've got an idea, just try it and see what you learn and then improve it as you go.
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you take from the first time that you did it? You think, okay, well that's got legs.
Yeah, well, so I knew I wanted to do something around food waste because I've been an ambassador for a charity, an international development charity called Tear Fund, and I'd done a project with them about food waste. And that's where I learned that a third of food in the UK is thrown away. Isn't eaten. It might even be more than that, but it's at least a third. And so I got a lot of end of day surplus from Morrison's, but I was only able to cook with, I don't know, like a tenth of it. Most of it was unusable to me because it was processed food. And so that was one thing I learned. I can start to do some things with food waste, but I can't save all the food. That was some food, wasn't made to be saved.
No. I guess if it's already arrived at its final destination, and if it's a processed food, what can you do?
Yeah, right. So, but nonetheless, there was some. So it was just sort of an acceptance. Right, we can't do all of that. And just that there was a real willingness to answer some of these, to try some of the things that I developed a real passion for. Maybe it's helpful for me to share that, like, the driving question I have is, what if everyone in our community had access to great food and people to eat it with? And yeah, since I've been asking that, I've been having a lot of fun finding some answers and some great people to join in with, like, we want to know. Yeah.
So that kind of underpins everything, does it? That one question kind of helps you answer everything else and how you approach it.
Yeah, that's the shorthand for it, for sure. Another way of looking at it would be, about 10 years ago, is it Jonathan Porritt brought out a book called 2050, How We'll Live in the Future. Mm-hmm. And I just got an iPad, and it was very fancy interactive iPad type experience. And so I quite liked it for that, but it really got me thinking, like, how would I like to eat in the future? Mm. And thinking, well, we were told that by 2020, we would be eating space capsules, like a capsule of roast dinner. And that seems like a horrible, I don't want, it might be novel, but As I've thought about it, I felt sure that I would want to be surrounded by people I love or new people that I might be interested to meet. There'd be the kind of chinking together of wine glasses, and the food would be delicious, and there would be some sense of that food being safe, like you knew where it came from. There was a strong connection with it. It sort of whispered of sustainability, and really importantly, who's around the table, that no one was excluded, or if they were, it was for generally agreed good reasons. And so that, rather than a kind of, the long table hasn't really been born out of a hand wringing of like, oh, we're going to hell in a handcart, the world, the sky's falling down.
Yeah.
I mean, I see a lot of that, but it kind of causes a paralysis, and sometimes, may I say, like a constipation, like a kind of, what can we do? It's too huge.
It's so scary, isn't it? It makes you sit up. Yeah.
So what was helpful for me to kind of navigate through that, I came up with this line, and Marcus, our mutual friend who designed the long table logo, he did a character, this person with their mouth open really wide, because I'd often say to people when I was doing food demos and things, like, think about every time you stick something in your cake hole, it has the chance to be a vote for local produce. That was, before all of this, that was my campaign, like support local producers and what grows locally and so on. And so there's the idea, this huge mouth, and inside it says, feeding change, bite at a time.
Yeah.
We can only, but if each bite we take is delicious and it inches us towards a future that we are desiring of, or enough of us desire it, then we can start bit by bit to actually make some change that's worth, find some things that's worth sharing.
Yeah, and you're bringing people with you as you do it, because it's steady and growing and kind of sort of absorbing the people who believe the same stuff, I guess.
Yeah, right. So can I? So Matt, this is the only kind of memento I've got. It's like prop. It's friend. It's my prop and my tea. We've been trying to work out, well, how do we fund? How do we raise money?
Oh, is that me or is that Tom?
Maybe it's worth saying that, like, am I here?
Yes. I might have been, I'm not sure if it was me or you, but one of us froze then. Oh wait, Jeff, can you give us a thumbs up if we're all right? Yeah, okay,
I can hear you. Okay, good.
Carry on.
So for one of the early decisions was to decide what kind of organisation we would be, and seeing the Furniture Bank Kids stuff, Kick-Off Stroud. There's a new one we've got called Bike Drop that's joined the group. Social enterprise seemed to me to be the right way to do things. I have some experience of charity work, and although Tiffin were really good at, like, my involvement was to teach baking, because I'm a baker by trade. It's about teaching someone to fish rather than giving someone a fish. But I feel like, well, if we do the kind of thing sustainably in a way where everyone can get paid, then until someone invents a different system for, like, how bills, how we have a house, like where we live and what we do, then a social enterprise seems to be like a really great way to hold that safely. And it means that, so it's a place, we're a place where people, come and get paid, and or important perhaps, and can maybe start to belong. And there's a few ways of funding that kind of thing. One would be kind of finding a rich benefactor that kind of just
that would be nice,
funds you a load, and then that's good. But I don't know any, or if I do, that hasn't happened. Or so there's different ways of doing it, but we've decided to try a subscription model. So we launched it a couple of weeks ago. We call it Friends of the Long Table, and basically we share what we're doing, the stories that are happening, and so on. And for £5 a week, the person that has one of these and is signed up to be a friend they have access to our food. So at the moment, because of lockdown and COVID and whatnot, we're doing a fortnightly takeaway, which we deem which is worth a tenner. So we thought, well, we'd try that, and that would generate an income which we could hire against and build against.
Yeah.
And this morning we had a quick tot up, and we've got 233 friends.
Fantastic. Wow.
So with regards to a quantifiable amount, and that's how many people locally have been positively impacted enough to say, yeah, that, you know, they're with us.
Yeah.
So I'm just absolutely astounded. Like, I'm amazed.
Yeah.
And that really has allowed us to do some, like, get busy doing stuff.
Yeah, because it's difficult to get people to hand over money on a regular basis, particularly in this sort of time. So that must be hugely encouraging.
Yeah, really encouraging.
Yeah. So I've got some questions that we got from our steering group, which should we just start to have a look at some of those?
Yeah, great. Yes.
And they can take us where they take us. So just thinking about, so Morrison's weren't the sort of, their waste food wasn't the resource that was going to answer all the questions.
No.
So where do you get your food from? Is it from local farms, or is it from supermarkets or donations? And is it, do you think, helping to reduce food waste in the area? Is it quantifiable?
Yeah, so in a way, food waste is it's a symptom of a broken food system. So I've been looking at the food waste we have. The only food waste we have at the long table is food that we can't use that we're given, because at the moment we're making delicious food and then freezing it, and it, other than some accidents at the microwave end or wherever it's been heated up, and assuming that most people think it's delicious, then yeah. So, and the other thing I've learned is that farmers don't tend to waste much food. Most waste is after the farm gate. Now there is some, so we're working with local farms, and we are able to access some stuff that's either too wonky or, you know, cosmetically not good, but certainly really good. And we're working with organic farms for that. So at the moment we feel like, you know, we can even choose a little bit who we.
Okay. Yeah.
We're working particularly closely with Rosie and Nels, Veg, Fred.
Are they in Stroud?
They're Stroud based, and with Dutchy Farm, Fred up there. Yeah. And Wick Court over in Arlingham. They've been super helpful.
Okay.
So we've got plenty enough at the moment, fresh produce coming in for different reasons.
So that's all just donated. Is it excess or is it donations?
It's a combination. Some we buy. If there's excess we can use, we'll take it. We'll change the recipe to like use something that would it's free to us. We're getting some stuff like from Hobbs. They keep some bread for us, and then we freeze it and we can breadcrumb it and use it in different ways. So some of it does that. We get some from wholesalers if they get, I don't know, like a dented tin or something. You know, there's different reasons why stuff, and if it's stuff that we can use. So, and as a rule, we don't take any processed food. So it might be some tin. That's maybe a tricky term, but not like ready-made. Like we don't take sauces, or we just take raw.
Tins of tomatoes.
Tins of tomatoes. Sometimes tins of beans. But not really things that have got too much going on in them. And then sadly, there's been quite a lot of like restaurants and things closing or shutting for lockdown. So we've been able to take some of that stuff. So yeah, we definitely have but the relationship we're that we're growing, and we have Emma Hurrell on our team. She left Soil Association and came to on-farm trials she was working on, and she's joined us, and she's from a farming background, and what she's doing is developing links so that we can in time start to influence what's grown locally. We always use seasonally, obviously, and then just making that a priority. What we can get for free locally is like top of the list, and then maybe we've got to use some chilies or some lemons that we can't grow, for example.
Would you ever be a point where there might be a long table farm? Or
well, I mean, yeah, that would be amazing. There's maybe a few steps, quite a few steps ahead, but
Right.
yeah, but maybe even more than a farm, to continue to develop a relationship with farmers, and even right the way down to individuals. So some of the lads we work with, or youngsters in the businesses, the great network, like just finding ways to encourage people even to grow something.
Mm-hmm.
Like anyone can have a bit of cress in their bathroom window. Do you know what I mean? And that might then, if you've got more space, some people take the long table takeaway containers, and I've seen tomatoes grown in them. And then we're working with Pagan Hill. There's a permaculture growing group there. We've been able to get some land for. So we're just finding ways of like communities growing as much they can, and then we will teach people. We've already started teach people how to then cook with it. So our first foray into the teaching was with the teenage kitchen we ran over the summer. That was funded for by a local girl who cooked and sold cakes for us.
Oh wow!
We raised £1,500. That paid for us to teach 9 teenagers how to cook. We did 5 days with them, and 2 of those youngsters are joining us as apprentices. One's joined already, another one's starting shortly doing a catering apprenticeship through Gloucestershire College.
Fantastic.
So, and that's with the teenagers, and we're just starting to work with Nelson Trust with a recovery kitchen, teaching people in recovery how to cook. It's a great sociable thing to do, but also gives people a bit more autonomy and lets them take power for themselves, so they can. When someone knows how to cook, it's a great thing. And we're working with Longfield Trust to help people that have lost if someone in their family who used to be the cook has died. We're hoping we'll be able to teach them in a really sociable way how to cook, and even carers how to cook. So just for starters, where the food comes from and then how we cook it. Sorry, this is a bit of a ramble, but I don't know if any of you have heard, and I've been really helped by this idea of 3 horizons. Our mutual friend Pippa Jones told me about it.
I've not heard of this.
Yeah, so look it up. There's some great little like one-page PDFs that give you a quick snapshot of what it is. But first horizon would be something like McDonald's, or I don't know, a food business that's kind of known about and well established. A second horizon, my understanding, would be something like Food Bank. So we love Food Bank and we share the site with them, but they are very different from us. And it's sad, obviously, that we need them. But that in order for Food Bank to work, people have to buy the food from the supermarket. And that food's often made in places where people aren't paid a living wage or anything. And it's a bit of you could say it's a sticking plaster that perpetuates the problem. Like, it doesn't really. So the third horizon is really to start from the ground up and say, right, what can we grow here? And how can we build for ourselves a new reality, which doesn't have some of the legacy problems. Well, I'm guessing there'll be new problems. And we do exist in a society where the first horizon is the dominant culture, but nonetheless, we're not too given to. We find it's really energizing saying, well, what have we got in our hand and in these valleys that can be put to work to build the kind of future that we want? And
do you find that there's always sort of new people and new projects that you didn't know about kind of coming out the woodwork, or people who haven't heard about you and then kind of engage? And is it sort of ever evolving in terms of input from different people and sources of food? And
to sort of different extent. So really what I'm hearing a lot at the moment, we've got phrases of love in 15 communities around Stroud District, but some in Gloucester and some in Cirencester as well, and one in North Cotswolds. And what we're hearing from them is that it is what they were looking for, but they didn't really like. We're met with such energy from the communities, and particularly Arkle Centre that have got one of our freezers. Well, their freezer, I guess, but they've got a freezer of love. And it's unleashed. It's like a key that unlocks. Like, food's just such a brilliant way of bringing people together. Our into that community was that all summer we made sandwiches during the school holiday debacle. And so we got to meet the kids.
Brilliant.
And so then we built up a relationship where trust is relational, by knowing each other. And that's, I think, paved the way for us then to put a freezer in there. And who knows where that might go. but we're trying to make.
How does the freezer of love work? Can you just explain the concept?
Yeah, sure. So we get this veg from wherever, from produce, using that kind of hierarchy that I named earlier, and then we cook it in our kitchen in Brimscombe, and then that food is then collected by the communities that host a freezer of love. So because of lockdown and COVID generally, we're not able, it's harder to do the together bit, the food bringing people together. So we're really putting on the community to, like, you can't just give out free food. It's got to create valuable social connection. And the food is available pay as you feel. Yeah. So that you don't have to identify it as needing charity in order to have a long table meal.
Anyone can go.
Anyone can go. Right. In fact, everyone should go, because what we're saying is, like, I hear time and again, people misunderstand, say, oh no, I don't want to take a meal. That's for someone that needs it more than I do. But Sheila, who heads up our food community resilience work, she's brilliant and has got huge amounts of experience in this area. And she's been saying to people that the long table is about food equality, not food poverty. And I have a great little example of this. During the first lockdown, we got so busy, we had sister kitchens join us, about nearly a dozen, I think. And together we delivered 47,000 meals during the first lockdown. That's pretty fun. And I just heard that from this one batch that was cooked in one of our sister kitchens in Gloucester, that it was a dal that went to the Royal Hospital, Gloucester Royal Hospital. In fact, we supplied all the hospitals. We had a freezer in all 11 hospitals around Gloucestershire. And it was at a time when the staff couldn't access food, the shelves were empty. We had a letter, an email from a consultant who could easily, probably one of the highest paid people in the county, a specialist. And she emailed to say that, like, she was so surprised to see the food there, and it really made her day. And she couldn't get food any other way, how appreciative she was. And that same food also went to the homeless hotel in Gloucester. So I don't know there's been any time in history, and I would love to know if anyone knows of an occasion where such a diverse group of people all ate from the same pot. Some paying 20 quid because they love it, and someone else can't afford it at all, but put into the mix. So far it's working. And at the moment...
So in effect, you had the long table, it was there, but it just wasn't really present. It was kind of, people were coming round to the table, round the pot, but
I just find that really encouraging. And the lottery have given us some money to start the freezer of love thing, so that's allowed us to do 6,000 meals. But because people have been paying as you feel, I mean, they're mostly in places where you wouldn't expect to sell them at high value. But regardless, 25% of the value is being returned to us. So now that means we can do, if we carry on, we'll be able to do that. 6,000 has grown to 7,250, give or take. So we're not at parity with it being sustainable in this model, but we've got a few months to work it out.
How does it work with where they're positioned? Like, is that your community resilience? Is it Sheila who kind of works out where they should be, or how is that sort of? Is it just?
No, it's all been a combination of these. Words kind of got out, and then communities approach us, and we've a really long list of places that would like them, and we're at capacity at the moment. So what we're starting to do is work out where we can also cook. So there's a woman called Debbie in Cash's Green who's cooking, and she's able to fill 2 freezers. So, and next steps, I would love to try and set up a kitchen in Cirencester and in Gloucester. And I've got someone coming at the end of the week from Winchester who's heard about us. So we need to kind of codify what's needed in order to do it safe and well. And then how can we empower... No, that's the wrong word. What's the recipe we can check? Because none of the things we do, like the pay as you feel, being a social enterprise, having a subscription model, it's all pretty wacky, but none of it's new. Like but the combination is new. So if those bits are like ingredients, the combination of the long table is a recipe. So I'm working with a great team to try and work out, well, what is that recipe that's valuable enough and worth sharing with other communities so they can crack on and get doing it. Because if that works, I think we've a chance of, like, radically changing how we eat.
Yeah.
from roots up. So
Yeah, it feels like it, definitely. Okay, I'm going to just go to another question
yeah,
that
great.
we've had. So this is a sort of specific Climate Action Network question.
Yeah.
How is the Long Table expecting to decarbonise the business over the coming years?
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, it sounds like you're running a pretty sustainable model as it is, but
well,
I mean, there's various aspects to that, from how you move food around to how you know, what you do with your waste, which doesn't sound like there is very much, or how you get your power. There's so much to that. But is that sort of something that just sort of feeds in?
Well, I guess bite at a time and trying to prioritize that. So
yeah,
just the first thing that came to mind was about veganism, and I'm sure we've got some vegan friends on here. Now that's like a massive thing. Now we put, so our chef Maisie, she's vegan, and but she'll cook meat. But we're trying to take as many people with us. So almost the bigger play is to make veggie food in the mix and attractive, like say mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Like, is how do you like a lot of people, like in order for us to really transition, way more people than just like a niche minority have to grow to love great food. And we can do that because actually it's just like make it simple, like your gran would have made.
Yeah.
Maybe, if you were lucky. Just like keep it simple and do it well, and keep it as fresh as possible, freeze it as quickly as possible. I mean, we're only doing frozen because of COVID. Like we wouldn't, this has been like a pivot that we've had to do. So, so we're kind of it's having these 230 friends and growing. This feeds into the conversation. So someone say, well, you could switch power and make a saving, or like we try and be as transparent as possible so that and we're wanting to do it sustainably as possible. So like
you say, it's sort of, I guess it's like just doing it step at a time, isn't it? Because you, like you say, you need to keep it moving forward and keeping people with you. So you can't make fundamental changes like going vegan. I know what it's like in my family. I'm doing that journey too, Tom.
Yeah. So I feel hopeful that we can make some, we can really reaffirm some like we're in a warehouse that's freezing cold. So
yeah.
like,
it's very cold in there.
Yeah, sustainability points of view would be like, everyone lives and works locally. I'm working with, I had a great chat. I'm Dan at eDemo in Nailsworth, the electric bike shop.
Yeah.
We might be working with him through Bike Drop, our new delivery service, which has just gone crazy. Delivering subscriptions and spectacles and bread and hopefully takeaway soon. And so, if we can all kind of get there easy, we're on a site that's brownfield and condemned to be pulled down. Our overheads couldn't be lower. Like we don't have any money to throw at. Like there's nothing fitted away. We keep trying to source locally, but we'll try and take, if we do it in a way that's accessible for everyone, we'll try and take as many people with us as possible. And then a good outcome would be that it's sustainable. But for me, what's not sustainable is like will pay as you feel work long term. We're still trying that out. I don't know quite how we do that without having some funding prop it up.
Yeah. And do you feel that that's kind of core at the moment, core to what you're doing?
Yeah, so at the moment, one of the big drives for me is to work out, like, I set a bit of a goal, like, could we have 1,000 friends? Because if we did, what we're doing for Brimstone and the district would then be, it'd be self-sustaining from a financial point of view. And then we could just look to replicate that in other places where we were invited. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I don't know whether that answers it in a very academic way.
No, it's fine. It's I wasn't hoping for a definite set of what you'd be doing, but I did read something that you'd written somewhere about microbiodigestor. Did I read
Oh, yeah.
that?
Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to say a little bit about that. I was looking at my notes of the decarbonising. I guess our priority is to not focus on fixing a broken system, but to we can't fix our broken system with the old ways of thinking. So it's just got to like start again in some respects. The biodigester, there's a guy called Guy in Malmesbury who's made 3, and I think they're all in London. And the thing is, you have to feed them, and you have to feed them food waste. And I don't think that we have enough food waste from our operation to feed it. But the great thing, and at the moment, our lease doesn't allow us to have a naked flame, which is, we used to have barbecues, but we can't anymore. So that's quite frustrating. But I've seen them in Brazil working, where you have like one cow feeds a microbiodigestor that produces a rich digestate that makes the crops grow better, and an output is methane that fires a gas hob which turns the vegetables into value-added chutneys and preserves. It's just absolute genius. So I don't know, there's a space in my heart for that, but at the moment we haven't quite figured out how to work with Guy and bring that on board.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So in terms of what people can do to sort of join in and help, is the sort of main, is it growing food for you that can be donated? Is it partaking? Is it sort of participating with the Freezers of Love? Is it becoming a friend? Is it all of those things? Is it, you know?
Well, I got it down as 3.
Oh, okay.
So
tell us.
One, which we would love, which would make, I hope I've represented what we're doing well enough. It feels like I've just like blurted out all of this stuff. I'm so sorry if this is, but anyway, 3 things you could do. One is, you might think, oh heck, this guy needs help, I'm going to join up and become a friend. That commitment, what is it, like 2 cups of coffee a week or a bag of chips? There's a £5 a week. That puts you in the game with regards to what we're doing and how we might do it.
Yeah.
And that would be super, super helpful and encouraging. And we would feed you in return with hopefully amazing food.
Delicious food.
The second new thing you could do is just buy our food from the Freezers of Love, because when you buy them, that again, just getting them used means we can bring more cooks on. I'm going to have 2 apprentices on our team, but we hope that before long we'll be able to have 4. And that's 4 local youngsters. You know, it's just desperate out there. We're trying to find people that have a passion for food, and then we will upskill them so they can go on and do their own thing. But they'll have been trained in the way of like going out to the farms and learning a bit about milling and, you know, all sorts.
So by buying from those, we're just helping you kind of grow, basically.
It helps, it really helps.
Yeah.
And you might want to, so buying food could be for yourself or for a neighbour. So maybe, you know, someone who's had a baby, and, you know, be a nice thing to do to give them a shepherd's pie or a veggie lasagna, or like whatever it is. So that'd be good. And then the final thing is just like, so become a friend, buy our food, and just tell people about this bonkers thing that's happening that might change how we do food.
Well, that's a nice thing to sort of, that reflects a big sort of part of what we stand for at Nailsworth CAN, is just that talking to people about climate change and little actions that can lead to bigger actions. That's a really sort of fundamental part of what we think, is just talking to people about it, basically. So that
sharing it. It plants the seed, doesn't it? So like, you know, someone could just grow. Lots of people have been bringing in apples, pumpkins. It helps. It's brilliant. And when we see people, they're like, wow, I didn't know. You know, they look around with wide eyes, like, wow, what in here? Wow. You know, it's sort of, it's very relational what we do, which is why it's a bit hard to kind of tell you it in a, you kind of have to visit and see it. And we're only in Brimscombe and in the Arkle Centre up the road, you know. Where you might, maybe you're not.
So I'm going to just have a look now, Tom, and if I'm going to just have a quick look through the questions. If you sort of process what we've been chatting about and think, is there something that you feel like you've missed telling us that feels really important? But otherwise, I'll just kind of have a throw to some of the questions, which we may have chatted about. So let's see. Would local community growing of produce work? So a community group could grow veg that they that they eat in the long table meals. So I guess, do you have local community groups who are not necessarily as formally as established as Rosie and Nell's Veg?
Yeah.
And
so sure. So we run a crop swap.
Yeah.
It's not like lockdown, and it has been really good, and it's obviously a bit of a seasonal thing as well. So we've done that in, like, there's a table which has just got lots of apples on it at the moment. Occasionally there's a lettuce, so there's something. So a crop swap is like great. People just bring stuff in, take some stuff, and we're hoping to grow that to include seeds. We're working with, I can't remember their name, but there's a lady called Josie in Stroud who has some heritage seeds and like original seeds.
Yeah.
We're looking to be part of that, and you can't sell them, it's against the laws, but we might be able to do it pay as you feel. So
okay.
I'll probably get arrested.
So you can distribute those, they can get grown, and then the veggies can come back to you.
You can use, so yes, like it might be a way that you can participate if you have a bit, you can grow some spuds or but also it might be that
so someone's asking, sorry, do you have a list, or do you just deal with what you get donated? Do you just see what you get donated?
Just see what we get given. Yeah, and we like watch like a hawk. So we take the stuff that we can use ourselves and cook it, and then the rest is just left there for someone else to take in return for, what they drop off a marrow and pick up some apples or whatever, potatoes or something.
Brilliant. So is that sort of a continuously running thing since?
Yeah, it is. It's in Brimscombe.
Yeah.
I just think that it needs, and in fact, there's a spin-off of that in Pagan Hill. There's a bus shelter. That's now moved into. It was in the old Baptist church, and now I think it's. I can't remember the community centre that's near the Tesco's in Pagan Hill. They've got veg in there as well. So it would just be like encouraging and like noticing, because now we have freezers in 15 communities. In a way, they're like planting a seed, and they start a conversation where it feels quite natural that, next thing is there's a table next to it that's got some veg on it. And then as we find people that are passionate about their way of farming or growing, say permaculture, we've got a few permaculturists in our group, that they might be running a course or showing how that works, and so we try and make it easy for people to join in growing some veg. And then when you're growing veg, a bit like if you're baking, even if you only bake a loaf once, you just kind of see something of the magic of it and think, well, and you get familiarity with the basic ingredients. And I think it's just a really wonderful thing. So we'll be looking for all sorts of ways for people to participate and help that happen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think there's quite a lot of, I think there's probably quite a few keen gardeners who are listening to this, sort of asking how and what they can do with sort of excess food, and there's obviously a lot of gardeners on here, which is good. All keen to help out. People asking where the freezers of love are. So I think that's all on your website, isn't it?
Yeah, that's on our website. So it's
and also, someone's asking how do they sign up to become a friend? That's on your website too?
That's on the website too. Yeah.
So you can do that online. Okay. Okay. Just reading through, it's quite hard to do it and talk at the same time.
Oh, sorry, yeah. You're doing a good job, Tim.
Thanks. Okay. Oh, there's someone who works at Ecotricity who says they might be able to help out with green and vegan energy. Give us a call. Okay, well that's interesting.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm wondering, So you're coming to the end of this kind of strange year where you've had to, have you just sort of felt like you've been thinking on your feet all the time? I remember a point at the beginning, sort of towards the end of the first lockdown, where I think had been incredibly busy, and then you did have a bit of a hiatus and sort of caught your breath. And does it feel like now it's kind of you're just sort of bowling along and things are happening? And
yeah, right. So we kind of went as far as we could. I mean, there's such a great and committed team at the Grace Network, headed up by Will and Joe Mansell, and they're just like, it offers a kind of safety that makes us feel brave to try stuff. And then what we'd already done at the long table, we were having up to 100 people coming for lunch sometimes and doing 2 or 3 evening meals a week. And we were almost at break even in that kind of business model. And then COVID hit and we just totally pivoted. We're like, well, we do some ready meals. What if we've got a biodegradable container and put the meals in that, and we use the furniture bank vans to distribute them. And then it ended up on the One Show and Zoe Ball's breakfast show, and then we were inundated with orders and we were just off. Before you knew, we had freezers in all the hospitals, and and during that time we met loads of amazing people, and the team grew. And I think some of us got very close to like burning out, because it was like it was just wild. We were running on adrenaline and caffeine, and it was a little bit dangerous and certainly not sustainable. So we've had to go, okay, what have we learned, and how might we do this better? And so the Freezers in Love, and Karina joining the team full time from a food background, and she's an amazing, capable woman. And Sheila is a Brimscombe lady with a community resilience and community building expertise, and some others joining the team have just like really given shape to it. And it feels a bit odd that we're doing freezers, but it is because of lockdown. We're hoping, well, if we develop good relationships with these communities, then our hope is that as we can start to gather in a more intentional way, we can do lunches, meals. Some of them will become kitchens that are then cooking for themselves. We can share what we've learned from other communities about what works with growing and so on. I did also just want to mention that we've just started cooking Christmas dinner.
Already?
Yeah, so we're freezing them, obviously. So we've taken over the ship-in.
Okay, over the road.
That closed.
Yeah.
And so that's empty. It's owned by the council. And so they've made it available to us, and we're cooking in there. And we're going to cook, we're on our way to cook 3,000 Christmas meals.
Gosh.
And we're kind of putting them in a Christmas sort of like party bag. It's like a brown paper bag with some fun stuff in it that's not tacked in. And causing waste. Josie.
Is there a chat?
Yeah, there's 60 people on this.
That's kind of wicked.
You come and say hi.
Chat.
No. So you can come and say hi there.
I just need my glasses. Can I
so-
say a mention?
No, just say hello.
Hi.
I've got teenage daughters here.
Hello.
And yeah.
You love
So
Christmas dinners.
Yeah, so we're getting all Christmassy, and that feels really great, and that's another bit of a win. But I think moving forward, looking at going deeper, putting our roots down deeper and where the food's grown is going to be really important, and trying to allow people, regardless of where they're at and what they can afford and so on, to play some part in that would be amazing. Allow people to create a context where people can participate in the food they eat. Doing workshops is going to be massive for us, I'm pretty sure.
Will you do some more of your team kitchen? Yeah.
Teenage Kitchen, the one with Longfields, the one with ones with Nelson Trust, the Recovery Kitchen. And then if we get them under our belt with local friends, their businesses, or their organisations that we know and trust and love, once we've got some experience under our belt, then hopefully that will become a thing, and we can then employ someone, and that can have an ongoing thing. And then we need to work out how we can best help Cirencester and Gloucester to cook for themselves, and how do we answer when people say, we love what you're doing at the long table, how can we do this in Winchester, to name one. So we've got a lot of work to do, but if we get it right, I think it's exactly it's kind of wild because doesn't seem to be so many rules. You know, we're a bit in no man's land.
Well, that's sort of how it strikes me, is that because you're having to, particularly this year, you're having to make it up sort of as you go along.
Yeah.
And that's so freeing, isn't it? Because there's no path that you've set yourself, and it's like, where are we along the path? It's kind of like the end of the path is always opening up to somewhere new. So you've kind of got this limitless.
So can I tell you how one way that we do that helps keep us sane is we try and make sure everyone knows what they're committed to. So like the people are on the team because they bring expertise. So Emma from her farming background, Sheila with her community background, and Maisie with her cooking experience. She's run a catering company. I worked with her at Hobbs briefly. So we kind of have to work out, well, what you committed to and how are you getting on and what do you need, and just try and keep really short account, meet every day for a quick huddle, go once a week. And then tomorrow we've got our quarterly kind of roadmap, which is, we kind of call pretending, like strategy work is sort of like, make up a good story about what's going to happen, but it gives us something to say, well, we're going in this direction. And then you don't feel alone, you kind of feel together. So togetherness is like being organized and being together is a really powerful thing to feel part of, because all of a sudden things feel possible. When I was on my own in this kitchen, I left my family business and I tried some things. It was just, I was desperately lonely. It was pitiful. And I realized, like, you know, if you want to do something exciting and create something that you wish existed in the world, it's really great to find other people that want to do the same thing and do it together.
It's definitely worth having the right team, isn't it? And you just kind of, it's that strength in numbers as well, isn't it? Where you're not floating around with an idea. I've got an idea. It's a really lovely message I've just read here, which says, Tom, blown away by the creativity, openness, inclusiveness and heart of your vision, which I think is possibly a really nice way to round up what we've been talking about.
Thank you.
Unless you have anything in particular to say. I'm just wondering if there's here someone says to that, which is very nice.
Simon Allen. Hi, Simon.
Simon, and a ditto to that as well. I'm going to stop reading those ones out. So just a couple of questions here. So someone wants to know who the man who makes my microbiodigesters is in Malmesbury, because they're from a community orchard, Fruitful Malmesbury. Do you know? Right. Can you remember the name of the man?
Let me look him up. So I know he's called Guy, and he works for a really large family-owned agricultural business.
Okay. If it's easy to find out, Tom.
It's got like two. It's like a double-barrel surname.
Okay. So Sally from NCAN is just pointing out the Arkell Centre has a fantastic kitchen, which is being underused at the moment. Dave from up the road, who you know, Dave Wilson, is saying many families never share a meal together, and this strikes me as important as the quality of the food, which is really true.
Could I say thanks, Dave? And it's sort of downplayed because of COVID. The togetherness piece is so important for us. So whether that's let me just tell you a really quick story, because we've got a few minutes before it's 9, if that's what we're aiming for. When we had this huge response, like need during the first lockdown, we had lots of volunteers come on site, and there are people we knew that had eaten at the long table and so on, and there was the job was to take the frozen meals out of the chest freezers and put them into cool boxes that have been lent to us from all over people, and then be delivered door to door to people's houses. And I hadn't prepared it, but it just kind of standing in a circle with about 20 other people, like, oh my goodness, we've like 1,000 meals to get out this week. They haven't been made yet, and we've only got ingredients for dal. Okay, what are we going to do? So I would say the thing that occurred to me to say was that, like, in this shipping container, we used to have 50 people eating at a time, and they maybe came for the food, but actually what people love was kind of meeting new people and the sense of togetherness that you get around a good family meal, if you're lucky. Not all family meals are great, are they? I've had a few.
Yeah.
But so knowing that we can't meet to eat together, I think that when we're taking orders over the phone and when we're dropping stuff off on the doorstep in a socially distanced way, we really need to give time, because there's volunteers that we're delivering them, to really just check in on that person, because you might be the only person they see that week if they're getting 7 meals. And one person who was a great customer of ours, he said, well, he volunteered, he wanted to help, but he says, I hate talking to people, I hate meeting new people. And he was in his 60s, and he said, so I said, well, look, you've got a choice, like either now's the time where you like dig deep and find that part of yourself that's going to do that, or maybe this is not the volunteering opportunity for you. And he turned on his heel and walked, and we didn't see him again. I felt quite bad, like, oh, that was awkward. But we did a report, we had a report done afterwards, and what came back loud and clear was that it was those conversations on the doorstep. That's what made, the food was still able to connect us. Yeah. And I think we would forget that at our peril. Like, we're just chucking out
the conduit for the conversation and the kind of catalyst for that meeting and allowing people to get together.
And it requires a kind of strong person to be, or someone that knows themselves well enough to be vulnerable to like knock on a door and do that, because you don't know what you're going to be met with.
No.
But the risk seems to be massively well rewarded. It's not about just chucking out free food because it gives you some kind of feel good. Like, that isn't what we're about. And if anyone thinks that's what we're about, they've misunderstood.
We'll have to do it all over again.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, that was just sort of like a principle thing of like trying to find imaginative ways of connecting people despite lockdown. I mean, it's really tough, right? It's so tough. But
someone's just said, that's so lovely. There you go, Tom. There we go. And someone is hopefully going to order some Christmas meals. Is that how those meals come? Are those meals able to be ordered? Are they going?
No, they've all been allocated.
They've all been allocated.
Yeah. So there's. I'm sorry to be vague, but it's definitely minimum 30. It might be as many 50 communities around Gloucestershire. So those 3,000 meals are going. Food Bank have taken 1,200. So they've paid us for their funding. We're giving 150 to Longfield to their carers because they offered us a kitchen, then I didn't need it. So I felt bad. So we said, well, we could use some, we could give you, so they're really delighted, and it develops that relationship with them. And then a lot of churches, because the diocese have been really supportive, and their vicars are being told, well, I don't know, if they're well placed to do it, they can take some. So quite a lot of churches are taking 50 or something. And then some are going through the freezers of love. So maybe you need to go to a freezer of love and bag one.
Yeah, it sounds like we all need to go and visit those and not hold back, basically.
Don't hold back, get involved,
So I'm just going to wrap up with a massive thank you, Tom, for being our guinea pig for this process. I'm hoping it's gone okay. It feels like I've just been chatting with you in a slightly strange way, but that's been very nice for me. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who has been present and listening. Just a couple of things to say. We're going to be having another talk in about, in a month's time, or on Wednesday, the 9th of December, from Chloe Turner from Stroud District Action on Plastic, talking about all that they've achieved so far, and also how to deal with the plastic plethora that we have at Christmas, how to sort of deal with that kind of stuff. And if you'd all like to join, if you're not a member of Nailsworth CAN, if you'd like to join, please head to our website, which is all shiny and new. We changed it all in the summertime. So there's lots and lots of information on there about all sorts of useful topics, climate related, locally related. So that is nailsworthcan.org. But also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, because we'll keep you updated on things like this, and also with weekly kind of messaging about stuff that's going on, climate related, locally related. So yes, do follow us, do join us on the website, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for attending. It's now 1:09, and I think I'm going to say thank you, Tom, and good night, everybody.